welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposal. I'm your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL round review. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to say this, two of my favorite co-hosts are hopping on the podcast in a perfect week for it. We'll start off, let's jump to Melbourne, Australia, and join Miss Marnie Cohen, one of my biggest friends who is a North Nuffy. Marnie, great to see you.
Hi, Donnie. Great to see you as well. Hi, JD.
And
Hi.
joining from South Australia, as Marnie introduces her first, is Miss Jade. Jade, great to see you as well.
And you too, Donnie. Thank you for having me.
And I cannot wait, ladies and gentlemen. This is always so much fun. And to bring two besties together who haven't had a chance to talk to each other in a while is always great as well. So, ladies, let's jump into it. Round 14 has come a little bit shorter round, but still some excitement as we have six great games. Really quickly, we'll jump to you, Marnie. Your thoughts all together on round 14.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting round, that's for sure. Obviously, as a North fan, it was one of a lot of extreme highs and lows. Um, I found it really interesting. Obviously, we didn't have Thursday night footy this week. It's one of the first rounds this year. We haven't had Thursday night footy, and it kind of felt a little bit empty. I mean, North don't ever play on Thursday night, so I mean, I'm not really. It doesn't really bother me as much as I'm sure it would for somebody who does get to see their team play on a Thursday night, or who would opt to watch the game, which I do sometimes. Um, so yeah, it kind of felt a little bit empty. Obviously, being the bye week, it also feels a little bit shorter, but we did have a handful of very, very good games, and then unfortunately just a couple of lackluster ones as well. It's weird that I'm sitting here and I reckon North probably featured in the game of the round, which I never thought I would ever say that this season. So there you go. I'm a very proud North supporter today, that's for sure.
Fly that North flag, Marty. Fly that North flag, Jade.
Yeah, I think I would say pretty similar. Collingwood North game was definitely the most exciting. Second, I might put the first half of the Crows in Sydney, but I'll pretend that everyone went home for the second half. I think the Brisbane and St Kilda game on Friday night was also a bit of a surprise packet. I don't think many people were expecting that to go the way that it did, but yeah, all in all, not a bad round of footy.
Well, and it's a great transition. We'll jump to it. Friday night footy, as Marty said, no Thursday, which I know there were many a person very upset with that. I didn't mind it having a Thursday morning where I didn't have to go. I can't look at social media. I don't want to get any spoilers on who won. I want to watch the game later. No spoilers. So Friday night footy sees the Brisbane Lions in an absolute goal fest, beat the St. Kilda Saints 126-106. An interesting game here because 100 points for the St. Kilda Saints in a defeat. Ross Lyon, did you forget that you're a defensive coach? No, I'm just kidding, just kidding. But I literally, I look at the score. It's like both teams put up a ton. It's great for footy. Was it the greatest game of footy? I'm not sure. Jade, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good one. I watched the second half of it, but you make an interesting point about the 100 points because I did see it's only the fourth match this season where both teams reach 100 points. So, little interesting fun fact there. But yeah, I think St Kilda are kind of, I guess, a bit known for their defensive style of footy, and I think it was a pretty good game to watch from what I saw. They came very close in that last quarter. I feel like the scoreline of 20 points doesn't really do that last bit justice. Um, but yeah, just not good enough, unfortunately. Brisbane ran straight over the top of them. And I don't even know what it was that caused that, whether Brisbane just put their foot off the pedal a little bit. But yeah, they were just too good at home.
Yeah, you're always going to get that push a little bit. Marnie, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's very, very rare that you use St Kilda and Goldfest in the same sentence. Yeah, as you mentioned, Johnny, they're definitely more of a defensive side. They're a very low scoring side. I think St Kilda in general have just sort of flown under the radar this year of just being incredibly underwhelming.
Mhm.
I think there was definitely internally, I believe there was a lot of high hopes. I mean, I'm not sure. To be completely honest, I've never really rated St Kilda. I really like Ross Lyon as a coach, and his press conferences are my favorite. I think he's very dry and quick witted, and I think he's great. But in reality, I mean, I think a lot of people would be really underwhelmed by St Kilda. You know, I think as well with St Kilda, the other thing is that they've had a lot of high prized recruits. I use the term high prized loosely, but you've got players like Brad Hill, players like Mason Wood, players like Dougal Howard. They've all, they were all, there was multiple suitors for a lot of these players, and they ended up choosing to go to St Kilda when they did eventually make the move. And I don't think really any of them have actually set the world on fire. Mason Wood's been pretty good for them, but like it's just I don't know, like it's just so whatever, to be fair. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I just think it's been pretty like meh and nothing exciting. And they've been incredibly underwhelming this season. I mean, Brisbane just kind of did what they had to do, and they were challenged late by the Saints. I know they got within, a couple goals early on in the last, and then they within 10 minutes just finished off the game really in that last quarter, as any good side should. I don't know if they'll be able to I don't know if they'll play finals. I don't know if they're good enough, to be honest. I know that the gap at the moment between probably second and about what 13, 14, it's pretty tight still. But I mean, Brisbane, they don't look as threatening nor as consistent as they have the last few seasons. So yeah, this game definitely had its moments, but overall, I think both sides have probably been quite underwhelming this season so far.
Mm.
Yeah, I 100% with you. I know Brisbane's fighting a little bit of the injury bug a little bit. I know when they lose Kitty Coleman earlier in the year, they've never really fully recovered from that. I know Darcy Wilmot has stepped into that place a little bit. Dane Zarko, I think, has been a great addition to the back line, been able to shift back and kind of find a little bit of a resurgence in his career. But I'm with you on the Saints. They very much have been a team that I literally go, I don't know what you are, because at the start of the season they were a run and gun team. They wanted to get out and run. They wanted to use the pace when they had Hill, you have Henry, you have Sinclair, you have a lot of speed on that back half. But they kind of fell back into the Ross Lyon trap of we need to be good defensively, which sometimes makes for not always the fun viewing. I'm happy they put some score up. I think there's some things that they can take some positive out of. I was hoping that maybe we'd get a nice Ross Lyon beauty like the neutered dog comment from a few weeks ago, and different things like that that made me chuckle a little bit. I know his sound bites have been just as interesting as his coaching this year. But I'm with you. Like, this is Brisbane did what they needed to do. Was it impressive? No. Again, there's almost a theme a little bit this round of behinds kicked. I think there was another 16, 26 or 27 or no, 22. Yeah, 22 behinds kicked in this game alone. And we'll talk about it a little bit later in the last game of the round, which I found fascinating is how many wayward shots there were this particular round for sure. I was like sitting, it was doing my head in with like, I think, yeah, so many games for like 25, 30, 35 behinds. Holy crap. I know these are professionals, but holy crap. Wow.
Too
It's
many handy points.
pretty much. So, all right, we'll go to Marvel Stadium as the Western Bulldogs greeted the Dockers not so nicely as the Doggies get a 149-82 point win. Marcus Bontempelli, you absolute legend. That goal that he had against three defenders and two of Fremantle's best and Alex Pearson and Luke Ryan. Wow. Oh, wow. Cody Waitman comes back and has himself a nice game. A little bit of a spread out. But again, this Doggies team is annoying me. Why can they not be consistent? Great game. Game. Great game. Game. So, Marnie, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I definitely think the Dogs have been such a weird side this year. It's so hard to know where they sit, and it's really hard to know if they're a genuine threat or not because their best and their worst is so far apart. They were incredible against the against Fremantle on the weekend, and I really rate Freo. I think Freo is, they've proven to be quite a good side this season. They've probably tapered off a little bit over the last sort of month or so. But they haven't traveled too badly this year. So I think for them to pretty much come over to Melbourne and come over to Marvel. I mean, I watched them demolish us at Marvel Stadium earlier in the year, but they never really let out a peep. Whereas the Dogs, on the other hand, like I said, and as you said, Donnie, it's so hard to know where they sit and what to kind of make of them this season, because one week they'll come out and they'll, give us a performance like that. And then the week before they'll come out and just, not really, they'll go down to Brisbane and it's hard to know where they sit. It's hard to know if Bevo is the right person for the job, because it feels like the list on paper it's a pretty talented list, and you kind of feel like is it time to change the reins at the top? Because is there a coach out there that would be able to get their best footy out of them more consistently? Because I think if they played their best football more consistently, I think there's no doubt they could easily be a threat come the
Mhm.
pointy end of September. But it's really hard to take them seriously at the moment because they just don't do it often enough.
100% with you on that, Jade.
Mm. Yeah, it's an interesting point about Bevo. I think he um isn't hasn't been great for probably a little while now. I feel like the Bulldogs make finals and everyone's like, "Yep, cool." But I feel like they kind of get let off a bit by I guess just the wider um AFL fan groups with their performances when they come to those points on the big stage. I mean, and everyone goes back to the fact that they won that flag, but they did, but that was really, I guess, a kind of a bit
It
of
was
a fluke
eight
that they
years
won
ago
like,
now.
Hmm.
and they got lucky. And I don't say that to, they obviously performed well enough to get there and all that, but I just, yeah, I think they're very unpredictable. I think Freo are also very unpredictable. And I can almost see the Crows doing a little bit of what Freo did. I think it was last year. There was that year where they were really good, made finals, and then they fell right off and then kind of came back. I can kind of relate to my team almost being on that level. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think both two teams that have been very unpredictable
Yeah.
this season. And I honestly don't know whether they'll both miss finals, they'll both make it. I think it could be one or the other. And it will come down to the very end of the season as to whether one of them slides into that eighth spot. But yeah,
Both
I don't know
these
what to think.
both these two are so Jekyll and Hyde sometimes. And again, it's like I know Fremantle and West Coast both have always been very good. They could play super well at home. It's how they travel is always the $1 million question. If they have a season where
Mm,
they can steal two or three on the road, they're going to make finals. And then it
yeah.
depends on where they land. If they land where they're at home most of the time and don't have to leave the confines of Western Australia, they're a danger
Mm,
all the way
yeah.
up to the grand final. But if they have to travel, it then becomes interesting. And it's like, and then you go to the other side, the doggies, as you said, Marnie, I mean, their ceiling and their floor I mean, are miles apart. And it's kind of frustrating because I know that as you kind of pointed out with Luke Beveridge, is that you start to get to the point where it's like you look at the list, and again, I know that sometimes board members are not exactly brilliant footy minds, so sometimes I take them with a grain of salt. But I do look at their list and I go, "Hey, the list should be performing at a better clip than they are." If you really if you
Mm,
break it down, the only issue that I see with them is that their defense is way too for me. Like Liam Jones has come in and done really well. He's really solidified them. He's kind of taken a lot of pressure off of Alex Keith. But if you really look at it, after that, it is a bunch of no names that you really just don't know what you're going to get on the days. Lockie Bramble comes over from
mm,
Hawthorn. He's been good, great. I won't go there. So this is the doggies team that I'm 100% like. I don't know what I'm getting each week. Like there are times I go into my
mm.
tips and I go, okay, what doggies team am I getting? Am I getting the doggies team that look like a potential top level, top four side potential premiership team, or do I get the team that couldn't beat a wet paper sack with a hole in it? And
Yeah.
that's the issue that I have. So like I sit here and I go like they're one of the toughest teams to tip. I actually got this tip right, surprisingly. Maybe it was more is because they're playing Fremantle in Victoria.
I
So
didn't.
that tip that I went 6-0. It was one of the few times I actually was successful this year in tipping, not bragging, just that was pure luck. Like I could have
Can't
thrown
relate.
darts. Many people said you could have thrown darts and got this one right. But but it is one of those where it's like again, I think the doggies have a good chance of making finals. I'm worried about Fremantle because of their inconsistency on the road. At home, they're very good. On the road, they haven't been as good as I think they should be. I think this team
Mm,
is built very well. I still think that the Darcy Jackson interesting rock combination has still not gelled. I think it can.
absolutely not.
I think it can, but it's just not had enough time to marinate enough to be ready. So they're going to be an interesting team again. I think what Sarong is doing at Fremantle is amazing. Again, I'm not burying Fremantle. I still think they have a lot of good things to look at. Jaya Miss has been good for them. Their defense is ridiculous at times with how good they are. Their issue is
Mm.
they just can't score. And it's the what do you want to win? Do you want to win defensively or do you want to win offensively? And right now they've got their one wood, they've got their two wood, but after that, there's nothing left in the golf bag, and that, I think that's the difficult part for Fremantle. So it'll be interesting. So we'll go to the MCG and celebrate the legend that is Dusty Martin. I know he was a bane for many people during that run where Richmond was absolutely
Yeah,
ridiculous.
don't talk to
I
me about it.
I know. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, we each had it, Jade. 2017 for you, 2016 for me as a Swan supporter with the Western Bulldogs. So I
I
think we
haven't
all
had
have
it
to.
for 25 years, so
Yes. Sorry, Marnie. Sorry, Marnie.
guys.
We love you. But I will say this 300 Dusty, congratulations. It was incredible. Kicking the first goal and hearing the roar of the Tiger Army was fantastic. I will never disrespect the Tiger Army's passion for their players. That was absolutely fantastic. But the issue is after 300 and after Dusty kicked that, it was pretty much the Hawthorne Hawks show the rest of the day as they beat the lowly Tigers 97-49. The Hawks, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Hawks may be back as they are one of the hottest teams in the AFL right now. Go to you, Marnie. How crazy is this? Because I mean, 8 years ago it would have been the exact opposite. Richmond was one of the hottest teams on a roll. We're playing well. Hawks on the downswing. I mean, tides have turned over there, and Sam Mitchell's found something at the brown and gold.
I don't know if I'm ready for Hawthorn to be good again. But before we talk about before we talk about Hawthorn, just a massive, massive, massive kudos to the Tiger Army. 92,000 people were at that game on
Mhm.
Saturday afternoon. Melbourne's very cold at the moment as well. And so to brave the cold and to sit out there, and they probably knew, despite the Dustin Martin 300 thing, they probably knew they were, definitely not going in. I mean, Hawthorn definitely went in favourites, and with good reason. They've been playing some incredible football. But for 92,000 people to show up for that game and for Dusty, I think this just speaks volume of how much he means to that football club and how much football means to Melbourne as a state. I think that's definitely just a massive kudos to them. But Hawthorn, I mean, they're looking scary good. They've got this incredible youthful energy about them. And Sam Mitchell's obviously found a way to really connect with the players and to start bringing the best out of them. They're fun to watch and they play fun football. I think they'll really challenge for finals. Whether they'll actually be able to impact finals or not, I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about the top eight and how it's looking at the moment. There's two very clear teams at the front of the race at the moment, and then there's a massive group behind. Now, whether anyone in that group has the ability to take it to the next level come September and actually challenge, let's just call it for what it is, Sydney and Carlton are definitely, Sydney is way ahead of Carlton, but they're definitely the two best sides in it at the moment. And whether anyone really has the talent, the depth, and the ability to take that next step and challenge them, I don't know. We can take that discussion for a bit later. But Hawthorn are fun. And I think Hawthorn will definitely, whether I don't think they'll go all the way. No way. I don't think they're there yet. And I'll eat my words if they are. And it'd be the most incredible final series if they did that. But I think that they're fun and they're youthful, they're energetic and they're exciting. And I think they'll definitely cause some teams a few problems should they play finals. And I think that it's crazy to sit here, where we were thinking about where they finished last year and, sort of at the start of the year, we're thinking, oh, really? Like they'll probably finish bottom four, let alone, they're pushing for finals. It's crazy. But it's definitely a very exciting team to watch at the moment.
Jade, your thoughts?
Yeah, I had tipped Richmond for this one, so this was the start of the downfall of my tips. I thought, Dusty, oh, you just beaten the mighty Adelaide Crows, you're probably gonna go on and beat Hawthorn. But yeah, no dice there. I think Hawthorn have absolutely exceeded all expectations this year. I think they could, kind of drop off in the second half of the season and it would still be labeled a success for them. Definitely very fast, young, fun team to watch, as Marnie said. So, Yeah, I think that they may slowly start to drop off a little bit just because they do have a lot of younger kids. I'm not sure that the experience um, that they have will be able to sustain the style of footy that they're playing for the whole season. But you never know, stranger things have happened. So yeah, I didn't get to watch any of this one, but I obviously kept up to date with it on social media because I was at the Stanford game before the Crows game. So yes, Hawthorn, they're looking good. At the start of the season, when I was booking my Melbourne trip, I said Crows will beat Hawthorn. No problems. That's the trip I'll go to. Um, I'm now I'm now 0 and 3 for away games for the Crows. So maybe not third time lucky, maybe fourth time lucky.
Virtual hugs, Jade. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But this is one of those where it's like, I'm 100% with you, Marty. Like, if you look at the start of the year and everybody's predictions, and again, I don't mean to do this, but it was West Coast, Hawthorne, North, and who are the going to be the bottom four for everybody, again, in the experts. Again, I will use air quotes there for those listening to the podcast. Because again, it is a crapshoot. You don't know what's going to happen. Nobody expects this season to go the way it is because you just don't know how the injuries. Did everybody expect that Richmond would run into so many injuries early in the season? Absolutely not. Nobody expects that because it's the freak part about this sport. It's like West Coast a couple of years ago with all of their injuries and COVID and everything that happened to them. There's always one team. There's always one team that absolutely gets shit canned when it comes to injury. West Coast has had it happen. I think every single team has had one season where you go, well, this is not our year, and you pack it up. So, I Richmond is still there's still some talent there. The issue will be is do they get picked off this year? Liam Baker, does he go west? Does Dusty retire? Does Dylan Grimes retire? Can you bring in some more talent? It's a very interesting Richmond team for me. For Hawthorn, I'm 100% with you. If they get into finals, they're going to be a terror because they have young legs. They don't know any better, and there's no expectations. You know when they go into finals, whoever they play, whether it's a Collingwood, if they somehow get to the bottom part of the bottom part of the eight. I don't think so. I think if they start to get healthy, they're going to get more dangerous again. Not trying to tack wounds here, Marnie. My apologies, but if they get in, they're going to be scary because they're young. They're a whippersnapper team that doesn't know any better, and there's no expectations. That is the most dangerous team you can have as a team that doesn't have to worry. They lose, they're supposed to. They win, it's a surprise. So I'm interested to see what Sammy does. I'm very interested because he's got himself something there. They're going to be fun to watch this Hawthorne team again. I know it brings back free kick Hawthorne and all of the evil memories that happened during their little three-peat, but I got to give Sammy Mitchell some credit here. He's got his team cooking. They're going to be fun to watch. So we'll do the transition. Okay, I will. This is Coach Donnie here.
I'll let you guys do. I'll
This
let
is
you
not Red
guys
Hat
do.
Donnie here. Sydney Swans get the win at Adelaide Oval, 109-67. But I'll tell you this, Jade, I completely agree with what you said. There were a lot of people in Sydney Swans land during when I was at halftime of social media just going through that, shall we say, they were a little tight on the backside because they were freaking out because of how well the Crows were doing. And I will give the Crows all the credit. They played a magnificent first half. That was a great first half of footy. They took everything that Sydney wanted to do and took it away from them. The issue was in the second half. I don't know what happened. I don't know what changed. Maybe it was the whole Mitch Hinge, Taylor Adams thing. Did that switch things? Armani goes off for 9 in this game, including 8 in the second and third quarters. But I still, until midway through the third quarter, I still thought Adelaide was in this game. I really did. I was sitting here panicking, going, Adelaide's got the home field advantage. They're not out of this. And it was just a couple of goals really took the air out of the Adelaide Oval. But again, I don't. This score line does not really say how good this game, how close this game was for a good 2.5, 3 quarters. Your thoughts, Jade?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. I think um, it's probably one of the most excited times I've heard from the crowd in that first half. Like
Hmm.
after that first quarter, people were like standing up and clapping. Like it was like a standing ovation almost, which
Hmm.
I can completely understand. After especially the last couple of weeks we've had.
Hmm.
Um, it's disappointing. I think you try to take the positives from that first half. Um, and in that first half, we were quick out the middle, where we were able to. And if we didn't win that clearance, then it was straight into like that attacking style of footy where we're able to put on the pressure, try and get the ball back. And playing it down the guts, straight in and down. And there's just too many times this season where the Crows lose all momentum for a extended period of the game. And in this game, you saw it massively where Sydney managed to score like 6 goals in 5 minutes or something like that.
Hmm.
And that just completely derailed us for the rest of the game. I, well, as soon as that happened, I was like, there's no chance we come back from here. Um, and it's disappointing because it's those 5 minutes that ruin the rest of the game for us. Like we can play, you know, you know, 20-minute or 30-minute quarters or whatever, and play that 30 minutes footy to our, you know, absolute best that we can put out there, which is what we saw in that first quarter.
Hmm.
And then you have 5 minutes, like we saw in that third, and it just completely throws you off, and then you're done. So I think that is one of the things that needs to change at the Crows. I think that we're scared of just taking risks. We've become very risk adverse this year. I think last year we were willing just to give it our all. And if my team's losing, but they're still giving it their all, giving it a red hot crack, and I'm actually being able to watch good footy, I really couldn't care what the final result is. But when I'm sitting there at a game and it's actually hard to watch and you just don't see anything changing on field and you can just see what result is coming. I think that's when you start to feel, a little bit disheartened um by what you're watching. And
Hmm.
when's it going to change? I don't know. I hope it's soon, but yeah, disappointing. If I could just you know copy the first half into the second half, that'd be great. But I
You and
thought
all of
this
the Adelaide Oval for sure.
I know
And
I
again, and I go back and forth with you and all the buddies in South Australia that I know that are huge Crows supporters. I've said it numerous times. There's just something missing, and I don't know what it is. A little
Mhm.
bit of what you had last year is gone.
We've lost the spark.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's like, and I don't think you played that badly even in the second half. I think the issue is that there were some deficiencies defending Sydney's ball movement that worked in the first half that kind of started to disappear. You started seeing Errol Goulden get the footy and started
Yeah.
picking out I mean, literally lace out kicks to forwards moving on it. I mean, again, you don't get many times in a Joel Armadia rookie elevate he kicks nine
Yeah.
goals like legitimately. And
That's it.
I'm gonna ask this, and it's not to try to throw salt in it. Were people at the Adelaide Oval wanting Joel to kick 10, or is it the fantasy of the media? Because I literally like. I know when they pulled him off, like the media people on the broadcast I was listening were absolutely doing their heads in, so angry at Horse for pulling Joel Armadi. And again, Joel Armadi has had numerous issues with hamstring injuries and calf injuries. Then I kind of
Mm.
understand him pulling it. But there was a little bit the little nostalgia part of you that goes, I'd love to see a bag of 10 kicked. Even
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I do get what you mean. I think that, I wouldn't have been annoyed to see him kick 10. I think to be able to join that group is
I
pretty
as well.
impressive. If it was like a one goal win, then yes, I would have been absolutely pissed off.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I would have liked to see him kick 10. It would be a great group to join, and obviously it's a great achievement for a player as well to be able to do something like that. But yeah, when you talk about the ball movement and that for Sydney, I think one great point to note was the job that Max Michaelini did on Chad
Mhm.
Warner. He really locked him out the game. which is also a big move for Max, considering he's been playing down back most this season and moved into the midfield to do that role. So I don't know whether that, even though it did help us with Chad's influence on the game, I do wonder if that also hurt our defense by moving Max in there because Max has been an absolute star last season and this season. He's like very, very underrated, considering it's only his second year. And I don't know what the move is there by the coaching box. I think there's other players that could have tagged Warner and done similar, but yeah, I don't know. Why we didn't take Mark Keane off off of Marty, I will not know the answer.
But then the question is, and I had this discussion with the Americans watching the footy. I said, okay, if you take Keane off of Armadi, who do you put him on? And who do you put on Joel? Because here's the
Yep.
thing that you look at it, McLean and Logan McDonald are still there. He's going to have to go to one. What if
Yeah,
the other starts
absolutely.
getting off the chain? Like say you take him off and you put Borlase on Armadi. Well, then
Mhm.
Logan McDonald now doesn't have somebody defending. And what if Logan then kicks four the rest of the game? Like
Yeah,
it's and maybe it's a little bit of the coach's mind in me. I don't think it's as easy as everybody's like, just take him off of him. Okay. Then
yeah,
who do you put
yeah,
him on? Because now he's got
yeah.
zero confidence because Armani has kicked 8 in 2 quarters. He's got
Hmm.
no he's got very little confidence now because he has been literally had his butt handed to him on a silver platter in 2 quarters. He's got zero. And if you pull him now, okay, now he's got to guard Logan McDonald, who isn't much easier because Logan McDonald pulls up the floor, it pulls up the field. So it's like,
Yeah,
what poison chalice do you want to take in that situation?
yeah,
Because
yeah. It's a very fair point.
so like,
I
go ahead.
you go.
I was just gonna say I think it's very easy for us sitting on the sidelines to go, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. Okay. I then, for a lot of people that know me with my coaching thing, I go, okay, what about this, and this? And usually this is what I get, crickets, because
Yeah,
you think so, it's such a quick thought. It's great, but you have to think of what does that decision then affect everything. That decision will then affect everything else. Because if you take Keene and
yeah,
put him on Logan McDonald and you move Borlace over, then okay, now Logan McDonald can pull Keene further away from the field because that's he tends to be that center half forward role. Okay, now you don't have Keene's ability to intercept Mark. It actually may open up Tapley and Wicks now to get more open
mm,
because that you don't have that helper defender because he's too busy having to come up taking to take Logan to defend Logan McDonald. So I
yeah.
I
Nah,
I completely get it.
absolutely.
So and I
Yeah,
want to say this though. Another thing that I love Max Michaelaney a lot. And the reason that I do is because when Kinnear Beatson, one of the best list managers, puts a bid in for him at Sydney, I know he's a damn good player because right now Kinnear Beatson has a really good record of drafting. So when I saw you
Mm.
guys match that bid, I went, Adelaide just picked himself up a really damn good defender. Hadn't seen any of them.
He's
So
fantastic.
it's one of the fun things that our clubs have another besides the Jordan Dawson going over there is that Max Michaelaney,
Yeah,
we threw the bid out for him and I don't think it was some Swans fans are like, it's Kinnear kind of getting it back at them for how they negotiated Dawson. No, Kinnear Beatson's one of those. If he puts a bid in, that means he knows that there's a really good shot this kid could be a darn good one. So I
yeah,
will say this. When
absolutely.
you said his name, I was like, yep. I remember that when he got matched up. I'm like, he's gonna be a good one. He's gonna be fun to watch. So I know, Marty,
Yeah,
I felt like
he's
we're
great.
leaving you out in this one. Your thoughts on this Adelaide, Sydney as a neutral?
I don't need to add anything else. You guys have covered it well. Nine goals is a lot though. That's all I'll say. It's a lot of goals to kick in a game. Haven't seen that too often.
Yeah. So the commentary about pulling Armadi off was hilarious to me. Though there are some Swans fans that are super pissed at Sam Wicks because he had a shot to mark it mid fourth quarter, and Sam Wicks went into the gap and kind of I think he spoiled it from Armadi. Armadi had a chance for 10, but Wixie was kind of taking a little bit of shit online. It was kind of funny, but again, I don't think it was I. It's frustrating for me because I thought this was going to be a closer game. I was terrified of this game. I'll be honest, Jade. I don't know if you listen to the podcast. This game terrified the crap out of me. Crows
I
with
said this was going
nothing.
to be our revenge game.
I remember listening to that, and I was like, as the first half was going, I'm like, oh my God, the Crojack people are gonna be so right. We're gonna shit the Sydney's gonna shit the bed. And then I thought about it. I was like, wait, the same thing happened against Carlton, the same thing happened against the Western Bulldogs. I'm not gonna panic until we get to the fourth quarter and Sydney's still down 15. So it was like when
Yep.
Sydney kind of took the lead there mid third quarter, I was like, oh, here we go again. And they went on and did what they did. It's annoying as a Swans fan. You hate the slow starts, but think about it.
Yep.
Though despite their record, there's still things to work on, which is kind of scary. And
Hmm.
you still have Mills and Parker still to come back into this team. So as a Swan
Yep.
supporter, there's still some room to grow. I get not
Yeah,
bragging.
they're
No,
good
no,
and they know it. That's for sure. That's one thing I learned on the weekend. They are very good, and the players definitely know that they're very good, which
I
is great. Great for Swan supporters, I'm sure. But for me watching, oh,
I was a little turbed at Chatty Warner for giving away that free kick. I was
oh my God,
really
don't
turbed
get
on
me
that one.
started on him, Donny. Don't get me started on Chad Warner.
Sorry, but it's kind of like Tommy Papley. You love if he's on your team, you absolutely love him. If he's on the
Oh
other
yeah,
team, you absolutely detest him. And I
absolutely.
respect that. I respect that. Not a problem. So, alrighty, now that Jade and I have had our fun, we'll jump to the other one, which I want to see the smile on her face despite the result, and that is North just falling short to Collingwood 119-118. But I know she has a soapbox to go off on this one. So here we go. Marnie, your thoughts on this because I was watching this game and was sitting there with my jaw through my floor. I was like, holy North Melbourne is literally taking Collingwood and spanking them like a disobedient child for this entire first three quarters.
Yeah, we literally had all of the football community behind us on Sunday. It was quite remarkable. It's so weird, like what one game can do for a club. And for us beating West Coast last week over in Perth, I went into this game and everyone knows me as the delusional North Melbourne supporter that backs us in every single week. And that's great. But I legitimately thought we were a chance against Collingwood on the weekend, and I was proven right. I mean, we obviously didn't get the result, but God, we showed some fight. I don't think anybody walking into Marvel Stadium on Sunday or sitting down and turning on their TV to watch this game on Sunday afternoon would have predicted that North would have been 9 goals up against Collingwood early in the third quarter. Definitely not what I had on my prediction card for that game. But that first half is definitely the most fun I've had at the footy watching North for years. It was just we completely dismantled them. I mean, our midfield in the first quarter, our centre clearance were 8 goals in the first quarter, and we couldn't miss. We couldn't miss for the first three quarters either. We had scored. It was our half time. It was our highest score for the year. It was absolutely unbelievable. It was so I can't. I've not seen us play like that for a very long time. Unfortunately, with North, we've come to learn a few times this season. It doesn't take us very long to unravel. And I think that's a young side. We haven't won a lot of games, obviously, in the last few years, and we're still trying to figure each other out and learn the ropes. And Collingwood is still, despite the fact they've got so many injuries, they're an incredibly well trained unit. And I think that's what makes them stand out to me. You can talk about, well, Richmond. I mean, they've been on the downfall for a couple of years now, but you could talk to Richmond or you could even talk to the Bulldogs, which is something I kind of thought about earlier. The difference with Collingwood is their system is incredibly good and they are incredibly well trained as a side and as a unit. So they've got injuries, but they've got players that can slot into those roles and fill those roles because the system as a whole is so strong. It's something that Richmond in 2017, 19, and more so 2020 had. They had this really strong unit their blueprint for the way they played was so Loctite and so watertight that if they had an injury, someone could come in and step up immediately and fill the role and knew what they had to do. That's something that Collingwood has. And you know, it wasn't. It was it was the Lockie Schultz and Bobby Hill show for me. I mean, Nick Dacos was obviously sensational the last quarter. Will Phil was tagging him for the first three quarters, did an excellent job, and then we subbed him out in the last. Liam Shields went to him and just couldn't get the job done. and Dacos sort of took control in the midfield, but it was, Schultz and Bobby Hill combined for 9, I'm pretty sure. Bobby Hill, I think, is still coming down from Marvel Stadium. He leapt so high with that mark. So, look, I'm very proud of the effort, and I don't think anyone would have predicted what we dished up on Sunday. And I sit here now and look at our next sort of, we've got a run of 3 games in Melbourne, and all against opposition that honestly, if we play like that, we could beat all 3 of those sides. We've got the D's this weekend. We've got the Bulldogs the following week and Suns the week after that, all in Melbourne. Next, where Saturday night we're at the G, but the next 2 games are at Marvel. And all those games in my eyes are winnable now, which is crazy because 3 weeks ago, the chat around North was, are they even going to win a game this season? And now we're sitting here and the second half of the season looks completely different if you're a North fan. We've definitely got some winnable games in that on the back of the performance on Sunday and then also against the Eagles the week before.
Mm-hmm. I'm 100% with you. I was literally, I pulled up my iPad at the start of the game and I'm like, I'm just gonna watch this just because I'm interested. I don't know, I'm intrigued. And I sat there and my wife is not the hugest footy person. I literally looked at her and I went, oh my God, what is going on? She goes, what? I said, well, I said the equivalency of one of the worst teams in college football is literally pantsing one of the best teams in college football and in the footy. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, North's beating Collingwood rather handily, and it's not even close. I mean, and she just looked at me and she goes, wow. So I literally, I sat there and I'll raise my hand on this one. The game started. I had to get up early. I had to get up early for the Swans game at 4:30. So I fell asleep during three-quarter time. I had no idea how the result was. So when I woke up and I looked at my iPad and went, are you shitting me right now? Like legitimately, that was my reaction. Like I was so pissed because I was like, what happened? So I had to watch this. I went back, watched the third and fourth quarter, and was just like, really? Really?
Yeah.
Come on, footy gods, at least give us one gift. I'm just, but it was very frustrating. But I mean, Georgie Wardlaw, Luke Davies, Uniac, my God, those two were fantastic in the centers. It was ridiculous how much they were there. And to see Georgie Wardlaw at full pelt, that was awesome.
Yeah, he was great.
So, well, Jade, your thoughts on this one again? I was just so gutted for North because they didn't deserve a loss in this one. This is one of those the Pies literally were lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like uh it's Collingwood are the one team that you can never count out in a
Mhm.
case like this. When I looked at the scores at three-quarter time, I was like, oh my God, I can just see Collingwood coming back and somehow managing to win this, even though you look at it on paper and you go like, oh no, like North are safe here. Collingwood are just always that team. But we were talking about this on the project the week before, and Collingwood and North just always seem to be on par with each other for like, a few the first 3 quarters of a game, and then Collingwood kind of managed to seal it away in the last. I think it happened like similar happened last year, and North held them pretty close for majority of the game, but Collingwood just managed to sneak away in that last. And yeah, it's always you don't expect it, but it just happens. Um, so yeah, very very unfortunate for North. It would have been nice to see them get the winner. It's always nice to see a team that's you know, not not expected to win at all. Like the odds are just not in their favor. Get up and snag one. So yeah, very very unfortunate. And I think the um, umpiring probably didn't help this one here. A couple of very controversial calls, including the touched goal and which I can, score reviews are obviously a very touchy subject for me as well. Um, but yeah, and then also the decision to not pay the 50 and the non-holding the ball call, etc. And it's always a tough pill to swallow. And I look at it from a Crows fan point of view, and the fact that over the last, like, I guess, season, like if you look at this point last year, there's been like 3 or 4 games now that the Crows have lost by less than a goal. And it's come out after the fact that, oh, we probably should have paid it here, or, the AFL may say, oh, we did the right thing, but was it really the right thing? I don't know. Like you got the Essendon one earlier in the year where Sam Draper just flopped straight on
Mhm.
the ball, pretty much directly in front of goal. Then you've got the Collingwood one last year where
Dawson gets
Dawson
coat
gets hit
hangered.
high,
Coat hangered. Yep.
20 seconds to go, right in front of goal. Dawson is one player that you can almost guarantee would slot that. And there's been the Sydney one as well, which we won't go into, but yeah, just a few things like that. And I know that people say to you, oh, well, your team just wasn't good enough. Like they shouldn't have let this happen, or you shouldn't have let the other team come back, or
Hmm.
you had your chances. But it still doesn't make an excuse for those kind of decisions. And I get that, umpires are people, everybody makes mistakes. I can imagine that being an umpire, the pressure when you're out on field, you've got the influence of the crowd, you've got so much going on around you. But I think there are some things that are just inexcusable. And when there's so many that stack up and there's things that could be improved and could be changed, like the score review system, which I said they're fixed, which obviously they haven't because it's easy to see that that was touched and everything's meant to be
Hmm.
being reviewed. How that wasn't called back, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think, yes, should North have not bottled the lead? Probably, but like also fans are still allowed to look at those decisions and go like, that is what
Hmm.
lost us the game as well. There's nothing wrong with blaming it on that because at the end of the day, if that it didn't go that way, they probably would have won. So, you
Hmm.
know,
Oh, 100% with you on that one. I was trying to kind of save that for the end and let Marnie take out her proverbial soapbox
sorry.
and go off on that. It's fine. I love that you brought it up because it's the great transition. I mean, she brought it up. I tried not to. I was gonna see if you brought it up yourself, Marnie. Your thoughts on the botch that was the 50-meter penalty, because I watched the couch yesterday and I agree with what Gaz said. I mean, the best way that it's a 50-meter penalty is look at Bo McCreary and Steel Side Bottom's face as they turn around. You see it. Both of them go. So they knew what they did. They knew what they did. It was an obvious
It's
50.
hard. It's hard because I sat in round three against Carlton on Good Friday and watched us give away 6 50-meter penalties
Mhm.
and never get really anything called the other way. And North don't get unfairly judged by the umpires. I'm not saying that, and free kicks don't need to be even throughout a game, but it was 10 apiece at halftime. And then after halftime, North had 4 free kicks to Collingwood's 14. Um, and North were okay, maybe they were a little bit nervous, and a couple of those were undisciplined free kicks, with Collingwood saying to get on top, and you sort of start to feel the nerves. The hardest part for me is not the fact that the 50-meter penalty wasn't paid on the day. It was obviously a 50-meter penalty. Just come out and own it. It doesn't change the result, but I'm not stupid. I go to a lot of football games. I watch a lot of football, and I'm not an idiot. I know how the game works. I know what the rules are. And I know that's a 50-meter penalty. Don't try and spin it and tell me that's not a 50-meter penalty because I'm not an idiot. Do you know what I mean? That is the one thing that really bugs me. If the AFL had come out yesterday and said, yep, that should have been paid a 50-meter penalty, it was our mistake. Great. I'm glad that you've owned it and we can just move on from it. But instead, making up some bullshit excuse and trying to justify why the call was right when it was so blatantly wrong, that is what makes it really, really hard. And I do feel for the umpires because the game is getting harder and harder to keep up with. The rules are harder and harder to keep up with. And it's making the game really, there are way too many games that are decided or by free kicks, or if not decided by free kicks, the commentary that follows in the days later. I mean, it's now over 48 hours since the final siren went, and we're still talking about the umpiring decision that was made, rather than how good North were or how great the Collingwood. That's one of the best comebacks in the history of the game, and no one's really talking about that. The game's becoming controlled by umpires and really umpires should not really be noticeable. They're actually just taking over the game, and it's just becoming really unpleasant, and it's becoming really hard for them to umpire because rules are changed in the middle of the season, in the middle of the round. And I mean, that's not fair on umpires, it's not fair on players, and it's definitely not fair on the fans because last week we got a free kick, Elliot Yeo paid holding the ball, and according to the new interpretation, that was the correct decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really, Tristan Sherry has been pinged so many times in the ruck over the past couple of weeks for his, too much body contact. That's a rule that's only been changed in the last few weeks. And players are expected to change the way they play constantly to keep up with the rule changes. It's just there is no way that we can improve or avoid any of this happening if we're making all these changes all the time. So look, it is what it is. We didn't win the game. The signs are there for improvement. I think we will definitely, I'm confident now that we'll definitely have a much better second half of the season. We'll definitely challenge a few sides. And I said going into the bye, I think we'd win 2 or 3 games at least to win the year. And I'm pretty confident with that now. So look, it was exciting. It was fun. It was impressive. Our kids stood up. A few of our leaders really stood up as well when it mattered. And sitting here as a North fan after the first half of the year that we sort of endured, it's nice to actually have a bit of enjoyment back into watching the footy.
It is always good to have positivity. I'm 100% with you. I for me, the holding the ball rule change was one of the dumbest things I've ever done. That's called it's overreacting to something that you could have put in a very detailed plan over the off season, instructed your umpires exactly, if this happens, this is what you call. If this happens, this is what you call. So you can go into next year knowing that the entire season is going to be umpired the same way. I agree with what several of them said. This season has now changed because a rule change has now changed how players play and how the game is officiated. So I'm 100% with you. I'm going to go as far as this, okay? I understand that Laura Kane has to try to make the AFL somehow come out of this looking good. All due respect to Laura Kane, you were given a job that nobody wanted you to do because you said something that was entirely, I'll just be honest, bullshit. You gave us an excuse to make yourself look okay. You were wrong. Your umpires were wrong. Okay. Just admit it. It's not going to change anything. The 4 points aren't going to go to North. Okay. It's not going to happen. Okay. We'll get that. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Jade and the 4 points that probably should have went to Adelaide last year with the goal siren thing. Don't throw your umpires underneath the bus for something that you've screwed up because you keep changing the rules. You keep reacting to people instead of just making subtle changes at the right times after the season, before the season, but with time for everybody to adjust. You are screwing up your game because you're so worried about a little bit of backlash online. Okay. Have enough education to be able to not just jump at shadows. Okay. I understand fans' frustration. I really do. Do I think it's all as bad as some fans think it is? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think there are some fans that are just, they have the attention span of a gnat. It's very easy for them to piss, bitch, and complain or whinge and sook, shall we say, all the time. Okay. It's going to happen. Is the game horrible? No, I don't think the game is horrible. I think the footy is really, really good. I've enjoyed this season because of the fact North Melbourne, the 18th team in the competition via the ladder, just pushed the reigning premiers to the final siren. That is good for your competition. Okay. It may not be good for a majority of the black and white supporter bases, but I think we all have certain opinions on that particular section of the Aussie Rules fan base. So I love it, Marnie. I love your passion. It's absolutely fantastic. Again, I was so frustrated. It's so frustrating. Just own up to it. Just say it was wrong. Come on. So we'll jump to it. The last one, which is another game that was very frustrating as the GWS Giants defeat the Port Adelaide Power 73-51. But ladies, I have to say this. I have to say this. Holy 24 behinds. Are you kidding me? Jade?
Oh, I don't know what was going on in this game. Yeah, a first quarter with the Giants scoring. I was like, oh, they scored a goal. No, 6 points. In Port scoring, yeah, 3-3. It was a absolute slog out there. I don't know what the hell
And there was no
Uh,
weather. It
was
was perfect. It
and
was perfect
yeah,
in Sydney.
yeah.
There was no wind. There was no rain. Are you kidding me? Like
I
I watched the highlights of this game and was just like, what in Sam Hill did I just watch?
yeah, I know. A final score of 9-19 is yeah, and 6-15. It's just not great for footy. But it is good to see the Giants get back on the winning board. They were like 4 losses out of their last 5 games or something like that after a very, very strong start to the season. And I had Giants as my tip for the premiership this year, so it's good to
No.
see them getting back together. Look, hopefully, we'll continue to see them push. They will be my team come finals because yeah, my team is definitely not going to be there anymore. But yeah, I think, the Giants have got a really, really solid team. Rough few weeks for them, but I think they'll come back with vengeance. And Port, I do not know how to read Port at all. They are just unpredictable. I'd almost nearly put them in that same bracket as like Western Bulldogs and Freo. You literally just do not know what they're going to dish up. Um, I think it worries me for Port, the fact that they have uh, brought in a lot of established players over the last couple of seasons, which is a great if you're in contention for a flag, which they probably were. I think their window was open. I think it's the closure of that is fast approaching. And because they just do not have much draft capital at all. And I think they've brought in too many players that, you know, wouldn't be in the best 22 in probably the top, like, say, 4 teams um come end of the season. So I think they've shot themselves in the foot a little bit there. I don't know if they will make finals or not. I think they could be one of those teams that's fighting for um those last couple of spots within the 8 if there's any available there with how tight the ladder is. But yeah, I've talked to a couple of Port supporters and they're thinking that they could only win another like 3 or 4 games this season if they're lucky. They have a very tough fixture um coming up. So yeah, I don't know. Go Giants.
Marty, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Bad kicking is bad footy, right? I mean, I've watched, West Coast kick like 17 behinds or something, 217 or I don't know, something ridiculous like that against us a couple of weeks ago. Footy in the way that footy kind of has evolved in the last sort of 2 decades or so, it's gone from being a part-time thing to obviously being a full professional industry. And we don't really draft the same way we used to, say in the 90s. We draft athletes rather than players on talent. And I think that's why the skills overall are kind of dropped in comparison to what they probably were, 2 decades ago now. But look, it was a game that the Giants has had to grind out, which they did. And that scoreline, the number of scoring shots they had would suggest that they were far and away the better side on the night. And I agree with Jade. I had the Giants as my tip for the flag, and I mean, you could probably throw a few. I don't think it's so clear anymore, but you could probably obviously throw a few other clubs in that mix now. Um, I think that they're kind of starting to get together at the right time. The one thing I love about the Giants, I think they're probably of all the sides in the competition have the most belief. I think that was really evident last season, and their push towards September last year. And I think that we could see something similar again this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of their season rolls out. I'm not so crash hot on Port, and I never really have been. I think that they just fall to pieces at the wrong moment, at the wrong time, and the wrong moments. They always it's like Port Adelaide blueprint. They start the season strong and they bank the wins early. So they're always in a position they make the 8. But come September, they've got no gas left in the tank and they don't really give us much. So I think that's sort of been the story of Port Adelaide for the last 10 years under Ken. They
Ken
might just
out.
drop off a little bit. They might just drop a little bit earlier this season. I think, yeah, they're not looking too flash.
It's very interesting with the Giants that they've also one of the reasons why I think they've had their skid is they've had a lot of injuries in sections of the ground that they really don't have a ton of depth. Like I know Josh Kelly was back and Jack Buckley were back. I know Stephen Canilio is still to come back into this team. So this is a GWS team that I think they kind of they're almost setting themselves up a little bit like they did last year. Like okay start, not too bad, and then a huge kind of crater in the center of the season where they lose some games they probably shouldn't have, but they're going to get healthy, I think, at the right time. I think they're going to hit that round 17, 18 and have everybody healthy and then go on that run a little bit. So this is the Giants team. I'm almost, as a Swans fan, I'm almost happy we get them this round instead of like in 2 or 3 rounds when I think they may be cherry ripe. So again, a little bit of red hat Donnie there, but I just, it's very, very interesting. Again, this is the Giants team that there, I agree with you. There's tons of belief. There's tons of people that have jumped on the orange and charcoal bandwagon. I'm one that if the Swans can't win it, I'd love to see the Giants win it just to kind of stick it to certain parts of the footy media, just for sure. I won't go any further than that, but it'll be interesting. Again, this is one of those. I'm full on with you on Port. I don't know what you are. Are you a great team? Are you a good team? Are you a shit team? I don't know because you can play like all three in one game and then play one like each one in 3 different games. So I don't know. This is the Port team that's very frustrating to me. If they make the 8, I think they're fodder for the other teams. I just don't think they're going to be in that contention to do anything come September. So I'm kind of just glad this one's over. I'm 100% honest. So that is it for round 14. All 6 games, as we said, plenty to talk there. We'll jump to the burning questions here. And I'm very interested with both of you on this one. So as we kind of said, from spot 2 to 13, we won't discuss Sydney. Not because I want to brag. I'm back the exact opposite. From 2 to 13, there's a 10 point gap, so 2.5 points. It's a 2.5 game gap. Does this make this the most intriguing part of this season with the parity in the comp? We'll start with Jade.
Yeah, I think it's probably the closest we've seen that far up the ladder to that low down the ladder in quite a long time at this point in the season. I feel like generally you've got kind of by this point you've got kind of the top 4 teams locked in or who we think will be up there come September. But this year it is so hard to know. I mean, you had Essendon in second place for, a fair amount of time, who have now been knocked down to fourth. And you look at where they were on the ladder and the teams that they had beaten, and it really wasn't that impressive. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be come like August and those last few rounds, it is going to be an absolute log jam. Probably from like 4 through to like 10, 11, I reckon. I don't see it getting any teams really pulling away over the next, few weeks. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very chaotic end to the season. And I think the AFL are going to have a lot of fun scheduling that final round. I actually like that they don't schedule that final round um, until closer because it is fun to watch if, that 7 or 8 or 9th and 10th are so close together and a game can make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting.
Gonna be fun, Marnie.
Yeah, I think you can look at it one of either 2 ways, right? Either the premiership's already been won and just call the rest of the season off now, and whatever happens from 2 to 13, it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? Or it does set up a really intriguing second. It will set up a really intriguing second half of the season, but potentially then just set up a very mouth-watering final series. I still think that there are stronger sides in that mix. I think Carlton's probably the strongest of the rest at this stage for me, and it's not my recent Carlton bias. I just, I think that I think they've challenged some good opposition and they've knocked off some good opposition around them. They obviously came really close to Collingwood. They've knocked off Essendon. So I think that there's a lot to still play out for this season. And I think, like I said, I think it can go either way. I think it's either the flag's been won by the Swans and that's it, shop shut, and then whatever happens, it's the best of the rest. Or we're going to see a very, very epic battle to the finish, and then we're going to have an incredibly entertaining September. It could go either way. I don't think we'll really know until sort of the last sort of 4 to 5 rounds of the year where we sit with that. But I'm definitely, despite the fact that North is sitting rock bottom 18th and had a really shit start to the year, or first half of the year, I should say, I'm definitely probably the most entrenched in footy I've been for a very, very long time. So I'm excited to see how the second half of the season plays out.
Yeah, it's insane. I've literally pulled up the ladder from 12th to 5th. There's a 1 game gap.
Crazy.
1 game. Giants 32, Giants, Cats, and Port all at 32, all the way down to the Western Bulldogs, Gold Coast Suns, North Melbourne, and Hawthorn all at 28. So you have that nice little compression of 4 points between 5th to 12th. So if you're in that 5th to 12th range, a win could rocket you up the standings, and a loss could plummet you out of the 8 for sure. So it is there's so much intrigue. I'm still not, even as a Swan supporter, I'm still not saying, my worry is that have they peaked too early? That's my biggest fear, is that they've peaked too early, that they're playing their best footy now. You don't want to play your best footy now. You want to play your best footy in August and September. So I'm one of those. I know it's 3 games, but I still don't think this is a done and dusted. Let's hand the cup to Sydney. I am far from that. Far from that. But everything, like, this is one of those. I know that 360 does snakes and ladders. This is going to be one of those. I would love to watch the snakes and ladders as the season goes up, because there's going to be a ton of teams that are going to bounce up and down. It is insane. I cannot wait to watch this, the rest of this season go on. It is going to be very, very intriguing. We'll talk about what I would say is the second hottest team, and that is the Hawks. They have won 6 of their last 7. I ask you this: are they the second best team in the comp, or is there another team that you would put right there behind Sydney? Marnie, we'll start with you.
No, I'd go Carlton. I think Carlton's definitely I mean, it was easy. They're out of sight, out of mind this week. But I've watched a lot of Carlton this year. I've been to quite a few Carlton games, and I still think that they are definitely the clear second best team in the competition for me. I think when they put their foot on the pedal, they can do damage to any side pretty quickly. And I think they've got a really great mix and a really great balance, and an even spread across the back line, the midfield, and the forward line. I think the one thing with Carlton, which I spoke about on Further North last night, is that their mid-tier players, sort of their middle 6 and bottom 6, are just as damaging and have uh, just as high a ceiling as their best players. And I think that's an incredibly rare thing to find. And I think that I was at the Essendon game over the long weekend, the King's birthday long weekend here in Victoria. And I mean, within 10 minutes, they had dismantled Essendon in the fourth quarter and the start of the fourth. And it wasn't the usual suspects. It was, Elijah Holland stepping up and Alex Chincotta. I mean, these guys are guys that, you know, they're no disrespect to them. They're both great players, but they're playing alongside Cripps and Kerno and Sam Walsh and Harry Mackay. So, and they're the ones that are, stealing the limelight. So I think that Carlton for me is definitely the second best team in the competition, but I would have the Hawks around. I think they're playing great footy. As we said before, they're incredibly exciting and energetic and youthful, and they're bringing something different. But I think Carlton are, for me, far and beyond the second best team in the competition behind the Swans.
Jade?
Yeah, look, I would maybe put them in second based on their form if you're comparing the last like month or so of footy. But yeah, I would still say it's probably Swans, Carlton, and then I'd maybe go Hawthorn in there with maybe Collingwood, like put them kind of on par with each other. They're definitely good though, and I think people have probably been underestimating them. Teams as well, like, I mean, you looked at the start of the year and Hawthorn, you would probably have banked as an easy win. Well, I did anyway. Not to be. But I think now that, maybe these last few rounds, people have thought, oh, the Hawks, that's all right, we've got them. And now that's not the case. Where will they start to maybe crumble a bit as teams do put on more pressure and kind of figure out their style of footy and how to knock that down a peg. I don't know, but they're going to be an interesting team to watch for sure.
Yeah, they're gonna be fun if they can keep it up. The way this thing is condensed, they get a couple more wins over the next couple of rounds. They're gonna find themselves from outside the eight, inside the eight, which is gonna be so much fun. We get to the point
Yeah.
in my burning questions. I have a question for each of my co-hosts, so I'll do it one at a time. So I will start with Jade. We'll get it out of the way. What do you think? I want you to put on your administration hat. If you were there at the Adelaide Crows front office, what's the biggest issue with the Crows right now?
It's it's honestly hard to come to one issue. I think that Nix is the kind of scapegoat for a lot of fans. People just instantly go, I
Mhm.
want the coach out. Like, I don't think getting the coach out will give us instant results. I think Nix has done a fantastic job over the last, few years he's been coach, of being able to rebuild the culture of the club. And that is something that is so, so important. And after the grand final loss and the camp saga and all that stuff that we went through, um, you know, a few players leaving, like a whole lot of rumors about what was happening in the club, which a lot turned out to be true. Um, Being able to rebuild the culture within and have players resign, and have people on the board, it made a massive, massive difference. I think people saw faith in the club and it felt like times were changing and this could be, the coach and the group behind him that get us back to, that premiership glory that every team wants. I think that our biggest problem is our drafting. I think we've managed to find a lot of gems, from lower picks in the draft. Like we've had some absolutely fantastic picks. Like Rory Sloane was a very, like low end draft pick. You've got players like Rory Laird. Um, there's just so many players and players that we've picked up through like delisted, free agency and stuff like that. Like Mitch Hinge, who's now in our best 22, and you'd probably put him in like the top 10 players at the Crows at the moment. Um, we've picked up some great players like that, but our first round drafting between the years of, probably, 2017 through until 2019. I think it is those 3 or 4 years have absolutely come back to haunt us now. We used first round picks on players like Jordan Galucci, who is no longer at the club and didn't even play 50 games, I don't think. We used, uh, a top 10 pick on Chase Jones, who is still at the club and is a decent player, but is he worth what he was picked and the players around him? Um, no, like we missed out on there's drafts where we missed out on Butters. Like Butters got picked after Jones. We picked McHenry, who I don't think will get offered another contract and may not be at the club, um come the end of this season. So I think we've managed to snag a few winners in the last, few years. Like obviously Riley Thorpe, he's going to be an absolute gun, I believe, and we've got like, Max, Michaelini, and there's players who have potential to be great. But I think those few years of drafting unfortunately have set us back, and I would love to see some fresh eyes in that group, because our you look at our, um, A-listers, and we have Dawson and Rankin. They're the two players based on the season as it stands that I would put down as A-listers. And they're both players that we've drafted in from other clubs in the last couple of years. If we didn't have them, we would be toast. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at. And there's a lot of questions about that kind of stuff in the fan base. And I think you have to look at it from the perspective that we're just fans. We're not inside those walls. We don't
Mhm.
know it all. But also the fans do have the right to ask those questions when you're paying, you know, a lot of money for memberships and you love the club and you want to see them do well. You contribute to all this. You go to games when your club is down and out and we've stood by them through this time. So that's what you do as a fan. I understand, both sides of the spectrum. I completely understand everyone's frustrations and I understand the people trying to be positive and I understand the negative sides of it. I hope, um, we can get back to the way we were looking last year, that's for sure.
Mhm. Yep. And all of your points are completely valid. You have no, I have no issues with asking questions of list management. Of the biggest thing that I have is when people are like, it's this, it's so simple. It's like, no, it's not, because there's so
It's
many other
yeah.
decisions that are going to affect it. And it is not as easy a slam dunk as being a like the list manager spot. Like I literally would
Yeah.
love to just sit down and talk with them, because the things that they have to do on a yearly basis, like literally, I'm surprised they get sleep, because these people have to scout other teams. They have to
Hmm.
scout 18-year-olds in, like in yours, in the Sandful, in the NAB league, in the waffle, in anything, any kind of competition that you can find an 18-year-old that may potentially be draft eligible, you've got to get eyes on. So there's
Yep.
so much that's going through their head. So it's like everybody's like, "Well, how come you didn't draft this?" Well, it's very easy to say it. Like I'll put up a point here, and I know it's Swans, and some people be pissed, but Chad Warner. Okay, do you know what? Do you remember what pick Chad? Do you know what pick Chad Warner was? I always ask this question because there's a lot of people that have no idea.
I feel like I've seen a bit of talk about this. He was quite low down, wasn't he?
Pick 39.
Yep.
Pick 39. Okay, pick 39 was Chad Warner. So there were
Hmm.
38 picks before Chad Warner. And look at where Chad Warner is now. Like that's the thing that I find fascinating is everybody's like, it's so easy. No, it's not. Because there are
Yep.
players that are in the top five, like a couple of the players that you said there, that everybody's like, this is a can't miss prospect. This is a person they're gonna play 200, and like it's the hyperbole on draft night is hilarious to me at times. This is a potential 250 game player. How the heck do you know that? How do you know that they're not going to tear their ACL
That's
in season
that's
one?
it. That's it. And also, like, when you think about it, these kids, when they're getting drafted, like 17, 18 years old,
Mhm.
like, so much can change um over the years of, a prime footballing. So yeah, it's tough.
Mhm. So, I think like I said, the list management thing is one of those. It's a little bit different. I know, I completely agree with you with Matty Nix. It's very easy to go. The coach has got to go. Well, the coach can't
Hmm.
control what players he does and doesn't have, what good players he has,
Yeah,
what bad players he has. He can only do so much. I mean, he can only take chicken and turn it into chicken salad so many times before
yeah,
it just
yeah.
becomes
And that's it.
one.
And the thing is that you get rid of the coach and you're still bad, then what do? You haven't
Nope.
solved the problem. You've just added another problem
You've actually
into
exacerbated the
it,
one
into
problem
the
you already
equation.
had.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
So,
All
you know.
right. So, like I said, I think the Crows still have a lot of good things going for them. I just think there's just a few things that they just need to change a little, a few changes that need to be made. I think a few front office things need to change a little bit. I think that there's become a
Hmm.
little bit of a boys club there. I think they kind of need to understand. I think there's a few that need to, I think they need to step up and have the cojones, shall we say, to step away and see if the
Yeah.
club can revamp itself without having to worry about the boys club taking care of the old club. Like, and
Hmm.
that's personally,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say names because I
Yeah.
don't 100% know all of that. Does the list management need a little revamp? Maybe. I think so. Maybe you need a new fresh, a couple of set of eyes in there with your scouts. Maybe a
Hmm.
change at list manager spot, just because right now what is happening is not working. And
Yeah.
again, it happens. It really does. So we'll jump off Adelaide. We'll jump over to North, and a lot more positivity from this one from me. As a North fan, Marnie, do you believe that your team is finally finding form after your win and pushing the Pies all the way to the fourth quarter?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's not much more really to say on this than sort of touched on earlier. I think it's a patience thing, and I think in life we're all just incredibly impatient. We want things to happen straight away, and that's not really the reality of how life works. And that same sort of uh, that can kind of be applied to footy as well.
Hmm.
I think we've had a lot of new faces in this side this year, be it debutants, be it players who, have come from other clubs, and then those who have been in the system for a few years haven't played with those players. So, it's and then some players have been in and out of the side. So it's a very new look side. And I think sitting here now at the end of round 14, we've definitely fielded the most balanced team we've had all season. And it's definitely the best that we've kind of looked even spread across the board. And these things, they take time. They take time to click. Clarko also missed a big portion of last season. So really, this is only like he's only coached about 25 games or something for North now. That's really hard to forget as well. And being stuck in this cycle for the last sort of 4 or 5 seasons, I've just been dangling down the bottom of the ladder. I think fans are quite frustrated, maybe getting a bit impatient, which you can't really blame people either. It's the same thing with Jade. Like we're paying good money, we're passionate, we go every week. So look, I think that it's definitely comforting to know that we are on the right track and you can sort of start. I think probably since about round 8, there's been signs of improvement. But now to actually really see that fast tracked over the last fortnight with the win against the Eagles and then the near win against Collingwood and what we were able to do in the first half. It's exciting. It's great. It's nice to feel excited about football again, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's always good. Always good when you have a smile at the end of your on your face at the end of the weekend when your footy team plays well or gets a win. Absolutely, for sure on that one. So, normally, ladies and gentlemen, we jump right into my section where I take over team of the week. But I want to take really quickly for a second here because this weekend I was strolling through social media after I got up, after I watched a few of the highlights to get ready for this particular podcast, and my two co-hosts here are two of my favorite people to talk with. Okay, I will be 100% honest. I love talking with these two ladies because they're incredibly awesome when it comes to footy. They give their opinions, but unfortunately, we do live in a world where social media can sometimes be one of the worst things, yet one of the best things. And I want to go off. I'm going to have my soapbox. I'm going to put it underneath me. I'm going to go off. I am disgusted with the behavior of some people on social media. I follow the Besties podcast, which is a Carlton women's podcast, and both those two ladies, Tori and Jasmina, are fantastic. I am not a Carlton fan, but I love their podcast. It is witty, it is intelligent, it is fantastic, and they show their passion. I appreciate passionate fans, but I detest disgusting, weak, pathetic, spineless men that attack these women because they show their passion for their footy team. It is disgusting. Grow up. I understand you're a man and you love footy, but that does not dissuade these women from being able to do what they are passionate about. Their podcast is amazing. If you are a Carlton fan, I do suggest you listen to the Besties podcast. These women are fantastic. Just like my two co-hosts here, Marnie on her podcast. Unfortunately, Jade is no longer with the Project podcast, but with her time there, I loved these ladies' opinions because they look at it a little bit differently. And I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that because there is no room for what is happening to these women. It is disgusting. It is pathetic. Grow up. I'm tired of it. I really, really am. I know I don't have a big platform. I know I really don't. But I'm going to use the platform that I have and I'm going to put it out there. Grow up, gentlemen. Grow up. Okay. Because some of these women, I know you don't want to hear this. Some of these women are better football minds than you will ever be. And I know you don't want to hear that. And I'm sorry I offend you. I'm sorry. Not really. Grow up. I'm sorry. I just, that really, really infuriated
Bravo,
me.
Johnny. That was
That
quite
really, really
extreme.
infuriated me. So reel it back in, back to positive Coach Donnie here. So we go to the team of the week here really quickly. We're getting close on time for me over here, but that's okay. Everything's good. Team of the week, jump to the defenders. We'll start off full on the fullback line, Lockie Bramble of the Western Bulldogs, James Sicily of the Hawthorn Hawks. And Adelaide's Mitch Hinge will be on the fullback line, the smile from Jade. We go to the halfback line, sees North Melbourne's Harry Sheasel, Collingwood's Jeremy Howe, and Port Adelaide's Dan Houston. We jump to the middles where we see on the wings, we see Hugh McCluggage of the Brisbane Lions, Lockie Scholl of the Adelaide Crows, and in the ruck, Tristan Giri of the North Melbourne Roos. In the centers, we see Marcus Bontempelli of the Western Bulldogs, Sydney's Isaac Heaney, and Collingwood's Nick Dacos, sorry. Jump to the forward line where we see on the half forward line, we see Riley West of the Western Bulldogs, Brisbane's Joe Danaher, and Collingwood's Bobby Hill. I think he's finally landed. I'm just kidding. On the full forward line, see St. Kilda's Jack Higgins, North Melbourne's Nick Larkey, and Sydney's Joel Armati. On the bench, On the defender is Brisbane's Dane Zorko. The ruck is Western Bulldogs' Tim English. The midfielder is Richmond's Tim Taranto. And the forward is Collingwood's Lachie Schultz. I know it was really quickly, really fast. Ladies, real quick, your thoughts on Team of the Week?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a pretty good one. I think I'm glad to see two Chris players make it in there. But yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would say the captain of that team for me would be Amadi.
Thoughts,
oh.
Marnie? I got Tristan Jerry. I had to give Tristan his due. He's been fantastic for you in the ruck.
He has had a great season. George Wardlaw's pretty stiff to miss out there,
It was
Donnie.
the fact Bont had three, Heaney had two, Dacos had two, and I believe and Taranto was the one I was fighting with it. I think Taranto had like 35. I think it was really close disposal wise, but I'm 100% with you. If Taranto didn't do what he did, Wardlow would have been there for sure. So he was like the next one. If I had a fifth, like if I'd had a bench player, he'd have been it. So I was on your wavelength for sure. So we'll jump to the power rankings. As I say many weeks, I do the last 5 weeks. That just gives me a little bit of, so it is kind of what you said earlier, the month of footy. So we start off number 5, Collingwood Magpies. Number 4, the Brisbane Lions. Number 3, the Hawthorn Hawks. Number 2, the Carlton Blues. And number 1, the Sydney Swans. So we won't go delving too far into that one. It's pretty self-explanatory over the last month. We jump to it. We get to the tips. There's only 6 rounds. The last round to the buys. I must say, as much as I love a shorter week, I'm kind of I'm kind of glad that the buys are finally over because then we get 9 games of footy every round. I know the Jade this week has the pleasure of no stress because there's no Crows footy this week, so I know she will love this. She doesn't have to worry
We'll
about
still
tipping her.
find a way to lose the bye, don't worry.
I don't. Yeah, that'd be fun. So let's jump to it. MCG, an absolute cracker to start off the round as Carlton hosts the Geelong Cats at the G. We'll start with Marnie here. Who do you like in this one?
Huge game. I'm going on Friday night. I think it's a danger game for Carlton because I think Geelong's going to come out after the bye and just absolutely. Geelong's been a really disappointing this year, and I think that it hasn't been spoken about enough. But we'll save that for another day. Um, I think Carlton's good enough to get the job done, but God, I think it's going to be. This could be game of the round. Like this is going to be huge to start the round.
I agree. I agree. Jade.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite a close one. I'm going to go Geelong just because I think they have been uh a little bit unders um over the last month or so. I think this is a game where they'll want to prove themselves. So I can see them just getting up over Carlton.
I'm going to tip Carlton only because that I'm one of those that a pattern has been established, and that is Geelong are atrocious coming out of a bye. if you look at Coach Scott's if you look at Coach Scott's record, he is not very good coming off buys. I'm going to tip Carlton
Yeah.
in this one. You face the Twin Towers. I'm not sure if Geelong's defense really is going to have much with this. Plus, I think Carlton's midfield is just a little too strong for a Geelong midfield that I think is still not 100%. Cam Guthrie's still not there. Whether we see Dangerfield or not is the question. If we do, hopefully he doesn't have any more soft tissue injuries. Carlton in this one, cracker, I think game of the round for sure. We jump to it. Saturday afternoon footy sees Port Adelaide host the Brisbane Lions at the Adelaide Oval. And another very intriguing one. We'll jump to your part in neck of the woods, Jade. Who do you like? Port, Brisbane?
I am gonna go Port. I think at home, they're a little bit too strong. I think they'll want to prove themselves after their performance against the Giants. And yeah, I don't know. I just think I have to go with Port. They'll be wanting to redeem themselves. And I just think, yeah, Saturday afternoon at home, I think they'll manage to pipe Brisbane.
All right. And Marnie?
I'm going to go Brisbane. I think Brisbane's had a bit of form in the last fortnight. And I think Port really struggle with expectation. And I think that there will be expectation on Port to bounce back, and that's why I don't think they will. So I'm going to go Brisbane.
And I will break the tie also with Brisbane just because Charlie Dixon is suspended in the sandful. So I'm interested to see does the
Mm.
AFL acknowledge that? Because if they do, I think this would be a great game for Chuck to for him to come in because it gives some size to kind of counteract Harris Andrews' defending abilities. So I like Brisbane in this one. I think Brisbane's starting to find form. They're starting to get a little bit healthier. I know Will Ashcroft is due back here in the next few weeks. This is a Brisbane team I think is starting to find form, and I think Port might catch Brisbane at like the worst possible time. So I'm going to tip the Lions in this one. We jump up to the Battle of the Bridge slash Sydney Derby. I can never remember what the heck they want to call this, and I know my Sydney friends all say what bridge because there's no bridge between the two clubs, which I always find hilarious. So the Sydney Derby is what I will call it then. GWS, Sydney. I will tip first in this one. I will tip the Swans. But again, just like last week, this is a terrifying game because if the Giants play the way they can beat anybody. The run from them, it'll be interesting. Does Jordan again tag Lockie Whitfield? Can Lockie Whitfield get loose? Do we see some more injuries? Does Canelio come back? How's that kind of handle? I think Swans win this just a little bit too much, but at Giant Stadium, anything's possible. So we'll go to you, Marnie. What do you like?
Yeah, I think the Giants will get the job done. It's really not what you want to hear, Donny. It's so
It's
weird.
tipping.
I
You do
think,
what you want to do.
yeah, but I feel like I don't know why we do this thing, right, as AFL fans, is like it's hard for us to believe that a team can be that good for that long.
Mhm.
And like we're just like, this will be the week the Swans drop
Mm.
off. This will be the week the Swans drop off. This will be the week the Swans. So I'm probably contradicting myself there, but I do think that the Giants are sort of starting to rumble a little bit. And I think that this is a really great chance to flex their muscles, to be honest. And I think they'll take that opportunity. And I think at home, this is a big game for them as well. So I
Mhm.
think they'll rise to the occasion and they'll
Yeah,
get the job done.
completely get it. You aren't gonna hurt my feelings. It's tipping. Jade.
Yeah, these are always great games to watch. So I will definitely try my best to um, get onto this one. But look, I'm also going to go the Giants. I think that Toby Bedford played a great role tagging Butters in the week just gone. I think we may see him be used as a tagger,
But on
maybe
who
against a
though?
player like
On
Goulden.
on who do you think it would be?
I could see it potentially being on someone like Goulden. I think they're quite similar in height,
Mhm.
height wise, and Goulden can have a massive influence on a game for sure. So I could potentially see him going to that. It worked very, very well for the Giants on the weekend against Port. He absolutely shut down Butters for a fair chunk of the game. So I'm going to go Giants. And also I'm just, I just love Toby Green. I think Toby Green is going to have a blinder.
I have to see. I know Toby Green's had some trouble with Harry Cunningham kind of cutting him off the last couple of times they've played. It'd be interesting.
Mm,
I'm fascinated. I like the tagger. I've heard some people like Toby Bedford's going to tag Chad Warner. I said that's a bad matchup. You want to know why? Because then they'll just send Chad to full forward. Does Toby stay with him?
yep.
Because there's no way
Yeah.
Toby
Yep.
Bedford's not going to like either Isaac Heaney or Chad Warner. If you tag them there, they'll just send them to full forward. Toby Bedford's in trouble because Toby Bedford's like
Absolutely.
this, and you have
Yep.
Isaac Heaney and Warner who are both strong as bullocks. So I agree with you. I think if they tag Errol Goulden. So it'll be interesting. Does Horace Longmire move Errol around to make Toby Bedford decide is he going to stay with the tag or is he going to go back into the system? It's Kingsley and I think this could be a game that's going to be won in the coach's box. Legitimately is going to be one in the coach's box because who
Mhm.
makes the adjustments when and whose tag affects the other team more. Because James Jordan shut out Lockie Whitfield in the first game, and it really threw GWS off because they're so used to using
Mhm.
Lockie Whitfield's boot to kind of move and start their offense off halfback. And Jordan basically nullified him for most of that game, and it really hurt them. Is Bedford the tagger? I think Butters is a little bit easier tag than Goulden because Goulden loves the wing, which is going to make Bedford run a lot more.
Mhm.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's
Gordon
going to
is
be
also an
fun.
absolute gun. Like his time on
He
ground
wants to
and
play 100% game time. He
his
legitimately
endurance
has
is insane.
He's told Horse he wants to do 100% game time, and Horse has told him, "No, you're not doing it. I don't want you to do." Like legitimately, I've heard that. Like there was one game he played
Yeah,
97% game time. They literally Horse said they said, "Were you going to let him play 100?" He's absolutely not. So
it's insane.
it's absolutely insane. That is gonna be a fun matchup. That twilight time period. I'm hoping Giants fans show up that it's 50, that it's at least 50-50 in that one. What I worry is the Swans fans take over Western Sydney and it becomes a bona fide road game for the Giants in their home stadium. That's what I worry about. I don't want that to
Hmm.
happen. I want Giants fans to show up. My worry is that the Swans fans are up and about, that they're going to buy up every ticket that they can if they have to get to Western Sydney, and this is going to be a bona fide road game, which will affect things, I think, a little bit. So we jump to a fun one here. I'm much more bullish on this one. North Melbourne v Melbourne at the MCG. Marnie will go to you. Can your Rouge get it done? Because I think the D's are ripe for an upset.
Yes, I do. I'm tipping North. I don't ever tip against North, but I'm doing it confidently this week. The biggest,
I love it.
the one thing against us is we this is our one game with the MCG for the year. We actually only play one, maybe two games maximum a year at the G, which is just there's a meme going around on social media earlier this year that Taylor Swift
It
played at
just,
the G
yep,
this year.
I saw that.
So there you go. But I think that we should have full confidence in ourselves going into this. I think the D's are looking shaky, obviously without Petrarca as well. So if there was ever a time for us to do it, coming off the last 2 weeks, now would definitely be the time. So yes, I will be tipping North with confidence this week.
All right, Jade.
Yeah, honestly, I'll probably tip North as well. I think that Petrarca is a huge loss for Melbourne, and their forward line is in shambles at the moment. So I don't see where they're going to really be able to score from. I will be surprised if they manage to post a high score because yeah, it's an all sorts down there at the moment.
It'll be very, very interesting. You know what? What the heck? I'm gonna make it a triplet. I'm gonna tip North too because I agree with what Jade said. I think the Petrarca injury, though it happened kind of some, and again, I hope well wishes to him that he gets healthy as quickly as possible. That was scary what that young man had to deal with. But Oliver is off. Gone is really the only one on this D's team that I'm sitting here going is in great form. Everybody else, there's just
Hmm.
something off about them. Like May has not been himself this year. He's been towed up in games before. Lever's still hurt, which I think throws off their defense. Salem has been
Hmm.
on and off. Caleb Windsor's come in, has played well, but has he made an impact on this team? No. And their forward line, what forward line? Keziah Pickett and Bailey Fritz are good, but they're not marking targets. Ben Brown can't stay healthy. McDonald seems to be getting thrown back for them. And the fact that West Coast dominated this Melbourne team and Tristan Zeri, I think, is a perfect matchup for Max Gawn. If Wardlaw and UP and Davies Uniacke play like they did against Collingwood, this is a perfect setup for the Roos to literally throw the footy world a huge, huge bone when it comes to are the D's
Ready?
done? And I think this could be it. I'm going to go with you, ladies. I agree. I'm going to tip the Roos in this one. I think this is ripe. You caught Melbourne at the perfect
I
time.
really hope so. I hope I'm not talking this up and we fall because the game we played the D's last year at the G and the game was over at quarter time. So I hope it's a
This is
different
not the same
tale
D's
this year.
team. This is if Petrarca was playing, I'd be more scared because of the fact he can go forward and it stretches your defense.
Incredibly
But
dynamic. Yeah.
it is one of those where he this I know they've had a week to prep for it, so it does kind of make me a little bit leery just because they've had time to adjust it. But again, I think North Melbourne's coming in with a ton of confidence, and this is a D's team that's been off for a week. And sometimes when you play a team that's coming off a bye, they're rusty. And if you jump on them really quickly, if they do what they did to Collingwood, Melbourne doesn't have the offensive firepower that Collingwood does. Clayton Oliver, as good as he is not a Nick Dacos. He's not a game changer for the most part. He's a ball winner. He does some things, but he's not a kick two goals, totally change the game on its head. He hasn't been that in years. He's not. So I'm I'm not just falling for this for you being on the podcast, Marty. I legitimately, as I'm talking about this, I'm like I'm more and more confident with that tip because I think you're timing it perfectly. You've hit your
Oh,
run
I
perfectly. Hit your
catch
run
me on Swan
perfectly.
Street. Catch me on Swan Street in Richmond after the game on Saturday night. I'll be there.
I wish I could. I wish I could. So, all right, we'll jump to it. Sunday afternoon footy sees Essendon take on West Coast at Marvel Stadium. Interesting to see this one. Again, no Harley Reid. This will be again part of his suspension, which I think is a perfect flip for it. I think Essendon get this done. They bounce back after the Carlton loss in this one. I like the Bombers in this one. Marnie?
Yeah, I'm with you. Kills me to say it because I really don't like the Bombers, but I think they'll win.
Jade?
Yeah, I'm also saying Bombers.
Alrighty, alrighty. And last but not least, out at Optus Stadium sees Fremantle v. the Gold Coast, a very intriguing one. Gold Coast can't win on the road. Fremantle can win at home. Dockers,
Mm.
Suns. Jade?
I'm gonna go Freo. I don't really have much reasoning for it. I think this is honestly one of the hardest games to tip of this round because I just really do not have any idea. This could either be so close or it could be an absolute blowout by either side. So I'm gonna go Freo, but not with much confidence.
Marnie?
I'm the same as Jade. Suns can't win on the road, but they love Optus Stadium. They have pulled off quite a few upsets at Optus over the past few years. So I wouldn't be surprised if they got it done, but I do back Fremantle at home. They're too like I think both WA sides are too hard to tip against at home. Considering the Suns haven't won a game, on the road this year. It's sort of you can't trust them. But if they did win, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, Fremantle at home after they tend to bounce back after bad performances and after that doggies performance, and you're catching Gold Coast coming back from a bye, which means there could be a little bit of rust on some of their youngsters. I like Fremantle in this one, but again, I'm 100% with you, Marnie. If Gold Coast pull this one off, it won't shock me just because of the fact that Fremantle offensively sometimes can disappear. And this is a Gold Coast team that have the weapons that can put up points and may make Fremantle have to go away from what they're really good at. So tipping Fremantle won't shock me if the Suns win this one. So ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for the podcast. I know this has been a jam-packed episode. I had to have some fun with these two absolutely fantastic ladies here. I love talking with them. They're an absolute ball to do with. So I had so much fun. Jade, Marnie, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. It has been a blast.
Thank you, Donnie. Always fun being here, and I appreciate you asking us to come back.
Thanks so much, Donnie. It's always a good time when the three of us get together. So I'm looking forward to the next.
Well, I will tell you this, AFLW is coming up. I think it would be fantastic to have you two on for another episode there. Who knows? Maybe even we'll throw you two ladies on for finals because I think your finals analysis may be absolutely magnificent as well for the men. So we will definitely keep that intact for sure. So that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Ladies and gentlemen, keep track. More footy coverage, Sandful Waffle and VFL. We're getting close to women's finals in each of those competitions. So we're going to have to preview each of those. Keep an eye out. Those coming very, very soon. We'll be back again with more footy in your ears.